Alright, pre-calc, so 2.2 part 2, we're going to continue on with quadratic functions, primarily with graphing them, and this is going to be what's called general or standard form. So it's not as simply finding the vertex by looking at it like we did in the last one, but we will still find the max or min values, which remember means the vertex, and then when we get into class actually is when we're going to start talking about the applications of the quadratic function. In particular, a lot of those that are taking physics right now, you've done some of this already where we talk about height of a ball and initial velocity and all that blah blah blah. So again, we'll talk about that more when we get in class. Okay, to start with quadratic functions in general form, it's going to be a little different, more like we have seen in the past. F of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Well, remember a, b, and c are some numbers, and x is your input variable. F of x is like your y or your output variable. So to find the vertex, which was hk in vertex form, to find h, we're going to plug in negative b over 2a. That'll give us the h value. And then, as always, to find your corresponding y value, or in this case k, we're going to take that negative b over 2a, plug it back into our function, and get an output of k. So f of negative b over 2a. Again, this will just be some number. This will be some number. To find the x and y intercepts, we're going to do the same thing that we did in the last video. So to find the x intercepts, we're just going to set f of x equal to 0 and solve for x. And in this case, when we have it here, if you have your calculators, it's really easy because we're just going to do the quadratic formula. Again, remember, we could have two different x-intercepts, one x-intercept or 0 x-intercepts if you try to take the square root of a negative number. And then we're going to talk about our y-intercepts, which means plug in 0 for x. So this says x equals 0, and then you're going to simplify, and that will give you your y-coordinate. And even easier, anytime we are in standard form, f of 0 is always going to be equal to c. So without doing any work, we know that 0c is always going to be the x-intercept for this form. And that is really all of the notes. So if we're going to do, given this equation, 2x squared minus 4x minus 4, we already know from the last time, since a is positive, that we are going to open up. So we're going to start by finding my x-intercept, which means a negative of a negative 4 over 2 times 2, which is 4 over 4, or 1. So the x value is going to be 1. If I take that and plug it back in, so I had 2 times 1 squared minus that should really be a 4 right here. 4 times 1 minus 4, I'm going to get negative 6. So my vertex in this case is 1, negative 6. And if I plot that point at 1, negative 6, I'd have my vertex right there. Okay, the x-intercepts, remember, means f of x equals 0, like we just talked about. You set this whole quadratic function or expression equal to 0. Use your quadratic formula, you'd get 2 points. Negative 0.70 and 2.70. So negative 0.70 is right there, about right there. 2.70 is going to be about right there. So that gives us our two x-intercepts. And then finally, 0c, or plugging in 0 for x, gives us our y-intercept, which is 0, negative 4. So I'm going to put that point right there. Okay, now if I wanted, I could think my axis of symmetry comes vertically down through the vertex. I could think of a point of symmetry for that y-intercept as being right there. And now you see we're starting to take shape of our parabola. So if we draw just a nice smooth curve, hopefully better than mine, through all those points, we get a parabola there, opening up like we said, which makes sense because a is greater than 0. Okay, so that is really it for if we're in standard form. The biggest thing, nothing really new, finding your x and y intercepts. X-intercepts you're going to do really easily if you have your quadratic formula. Y-intercepts, just plugging in 0 for x, which is always going to be 0c in this form, and then finding your vertex. So x value is negative b over 2a, and the y value, as always, plug in your x value and you get out a corresponding y value. You just need to make sure that you're careful with parentheses, i.e. if you square a negative number, the answer should always be positive. See you next time, guys.